Hello, welcome to this new webinar that we at the Rosa Luxembourg Foundation are sponsoring, organized by the Middle East Treaty Organization. We are very glad that you are joining us today for this very important issue to discuss. Again, we're gonna be giving out some analysis from the region and hopefully some responses to what can we do. We're gonna dive right in. We only have 1 hour, so I wanna invite first to the floor Jordanian Ambassador Lina Arafat. She's part of the board of directors of the Middle East Treaty Organization, and she will give us her perspective from Jordan. Lina, it's all yours.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for being here. And hopefully, this will be a chance to share with you some of the point of views of the Arab states in the midst of all of what's happening now. Today, almost 24 days of this war that have actually shattered the fragile no war, no peace equilibrium that held the Middle East for decades. What began as a targeted campaign to decapitate the Iranian leadership and dismantle its nuclear infrastructure has transformed into a regional blaze. To understand the gravity of this moment, we must look through the eyes of the Arab nations who are in the middle of all of what's happening, from Riyadh from Saudi Arabia to Qatar to UAE to Kuwait to Bahrain and even Jordan. For these nations, this is the nightmare scenario they spent the last 5 years trying to pass and negotiate away. For years, the Gulf states like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait and Bahrain, revolved toward a policy-based approach. They sought de-escalation. They brokered, the 2023 reapproachment. They opened channels with Iran, not out of sudden affection, but out of a cold, hard realization. When the giants fight, the grass is trampled. Today, among all what is happening, the grass is actually burning. Iran's response strikes and the strikes that have not just targeted Israeli or U.S. bases, they have also, rained down on Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, and Jordan. The logic that they are, or the way they see it, the Arab countries, the way they see that the logic Iran is trying to follow is that, if Iranian state is to collapse, it will take the global energy market and its neighboring prosperity with it. No mercy at all. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz is no longer a threat to them. It is a developing reality, and the impact of this has affected everyone else in the region, and if not globally. For the Arab nation, this is the fear that they are facing in multiple ways. First, the targeting the infrastructure. This is no longer is just about U.S. bases. We are seeing, direct strikes on Saudi oil refineries, Qatari gas plants, and major civilian hubs like the Dubai and Kuwaiti international airports. There's also the maritime stranglehold. The Strait of Hormuz is no longer just a threat; it's being choked. By disturbing oil and gas export. Iran has driven maritime insurance premiums to high levels, effectively paralyzing the Gulf economic lifeblood. There's also the economic and psychological warfare by striking the Gulf business model, tourism, investment, innovation. Iran is also aiming to force the Gulf leaders to pressure the U.S. administration into an immediate stop. There have been several maneuvering around this, especially when we talk about the psychological warfare. We hear every 5 minutes, we hear different statements from the Americans, from the Israelis, from the Iranians, and many times they are all being, contradicting statements. There's also the proxy activation. The threat is now three-dimensional, with the activation of fronts in Yemen and Iraq to target the Gulf interior on a sustained long-term basis. This is what I think when we talk about the non-state actors, this is exactly what is happening now. Utilizing Hezbollah to strike Israel. Now the Houthis have not hit so far, but I think this is it's soon going to be happening as well, and they may also be using other cards as well. With the maritime passages that they can force and to use and stop, which will also threaten the trade routes for many countries in the region and internationally as well. There's also the fear of the prospect of a vacuum in Iran should it falls. That mirrors the chaos that happened in Iraq in 2003, but on a scale 10 times larger, breeding radicalism, refugee flows that could also destabilize every neighboring country in the region. Of course, there's the issue of sovereignty. Countries like Jordan, find themselves in the impossible position of intercepting missiles over their own skies, caught between U.S. and Israeli offensive they did not authorize and an Iranian retaliation that they did not provoke in the first place. So the Gulf states have maintained a policy of tense strategic patience, but approaching a point of total disruption at the same time. This is the moment where, the air defense are overwhelmed by the sheer volume of drones, or when strikes on the desalination plants directly threatens the lives of millions in the region. At this the patience is fading. The Arab world is moving toward bitter choices to defend their own sovereignty. If we look at the military side, it's a shift from passive interception to active deterrence and defending. We might, if this continues, we might see, Gulf forces directly striking Iranian drones launch sites and command centers that target their own soil. And on the strategic side, this war is ending the era of balanced relations. We are seeing a public formal deepening of military and intelligence coordinations to form a regional protection umbrella. And on the economic side, there is a desperate rushing of alternative pipelines through the Red Sea and Oman to bypass the Strait of Hormuz and strip Iran from its primary leverage and try to find solutions that could help, the region to continue, their livelihood and their economy to survive. The coast.
Lina, sorry, if you could go start to wrap up.
Okay, yes. The cost of this war is really overwhelming. The US is spending hundreds of millions daily. Iran has lost over 2,000 lives in 3 weeks, and the global economy is just, bracing a shock of, 5 times larger than the 1973 oil crisis. We are at crossroads, one path toward a prolonged, regime change, war with no day after plan, a path that risks the total collapse of the regional order, and the other path empowers the Arab and regional voices who are unwilling actors on the stage. The Arab world is no longer a spectator, it's at the battlefield. If we do not listen to the actors on the stage, the curtain may fall on the Middle East security for an entire generation. So we are caught up in something that, everyone is trying to find a solution for. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for keeping it short. Very appreciated. So we're gonna move to Emad Kiyaei. He's an expert, Iranian expert, and also one of the co-directors of METO. Emad, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mariana, RLS, and all of you joining us on this webinar. First of all, happy Eid and Eid Mubarak to those who celebrate Eid, and Happy New Year to the Iranians. I know it may seem like not very happy at the moment, but one thing that is true is that we cannot, no matter how many bombings happen on Iran and across the region, for this war of choice by United States, Trump administration, and Netanyahu, they cannot stop time, nor can they stop the spring from coming. My notes here today, things are moving really fast, but I will try to compress it into a couple of key points. First of all, let's go from latest and back. The Trump announcement of a 5-day ceasefire and the notion that our US is negotiating with the Iranians is a false flag. The Iranians are not seeking a ceasefire on this war. they're seeking a very specific outcome, which is a permanent end to the war. And for that, it requires a non-aggression pact, guarantees that the United States and Israel will not again engage in a war with Iran. And since Trump and Netanyahu, and Trump specifically in this case, on the third round of negotiations between US and Iran, facilitated by the Omanis, again opted for war. And this is the second time the Iranians are engaging in negotiations where the outcome has been, instead of taking a deal that was extremely well presented and agreed upon by Witkoff and the Iranian Araqchi, that gave exactly what the Americans were asking for. Iran again said we will not build a nuclear weapon. We're not interested in nuclear weapons. On the enrichment, they will reduce it to 3.5%, which is primarily used for civilian nuclear generation, and ship out or dilute the highly enriched uranium stockpile of 400 kilograms plus that has been enriched at 60%, along with other concessions. That deal was not taken. And within less than 48 hours, the war began. So where are we now, and how do we actually find an off-ramp that everybody's talking about? As Lina has mentioned, the implications of the US-Israel war on Iran has been on every domain has been impacting. May that be energy markets, may that be the human lives that have been lost or injured, and the millions that are now across the region held hostage to a war of choice by Trump and Netanyahu. And therefore, the way out, it requires, since everybody gets an impact, that a deal, a final deal that will be needed to bring an end to this war will require not only US, Israel, and Iran to reach an agreement, but one that will include the regional countries and the global powers, specifically the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council and the Arab League members, specifically again the GCC countries, who are now facing maybe one of the worst implications of this war, that Iran's asymmetric strategy of countering 2 nuclear weapon states and 1 regional military superpower and 1 global superpower is to make sure everybody hurts, because that's the only way it can actually bring to bear the costs that are necessary to bring an end to this war. And that means that ultimately, and you can look around and you'll see that just yesterday evening, the American and NATO troops left the major base in Iraq towards Jordan, primarily because of the popular mobilization units that have been targeting US personnel and bases in Iraq. That in itself is a major change in terms of US military presence in a key country neighboring Iran. Not to mention that the air defenses and all the billions dollars that the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, Emiratis, Saudis, Qataris, Kuwaitis, Bahrainis have been spending to buy their security at the behest of the United States has seen and been shown that it's been worthless. That the insecurity of one is the insecurity of the other. The security of the other is the security of yours. And therefore, this has become clear that ultimately, in the future, once this war is ended, that there is a need for a regional security apparatus that brings the concerns of the sovereign states of the region to the table, where they can devise and strategize and come to an agreement on how to secure their own sovereign needs collectively. And this may be a beginning of an end of US military presence, and they've lost their trust, not only by the GCC, but the rest of the countries around the world are watching this, and they're seeing that the United States is a belligerent power that has gone way over its head, and with the convincing of Netanyahu in a war that has opened up a Pandora's box, and they cannot put the genie back into the box. And I hope that in our Q&A sessions, we will go more in depth into what are the ways forward and way we can bring an end to this nightmare that is being inflicted on Iran, on Israel, on across the countries in the region and globally. and the impacts are for years going to be reverberating across the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emad. That was really good. I'm gonna now move to Sharon Dolev. Sharon is calling from Israel, founder of METO and an executive director. So Sharon, please take it on.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mariana, for hosting this, and for everybody coming, and my colleagues. It's so nice to see you over Zoom. Hope we can meet in person soon. I'm going to touch on a few things. First, just before this webinar started, the headline said that Trump said that now Iran is willing not to build a bomb, committed to not building a bomb. The righteous side of me says they never meant to build a bomb. They said this throughout at least the last 2 centuries, decades, sorry. So nothing new here. The practical side of me wants to pat Trump on the head and say, yes, this is a great achievement, take it. I mean, but it also shows how ridiculous and irresponsible this war is. It has nothing and never had anything to do with nuclear. We talked about it last webinar, so I'm not going to repeat that. I want to try to be very short and talk about the two possibilities for civil society. When it comes to the invasion to Lebanon, which is a new phase now, we have a unique opportunity. While there are already 1 million refugees from South Lebanon that have no place to go, and while there are already bombings from the air, and including bombing of infrastructure like bridges, which cause to ask what is the end picture that the IDF and Netanyahu have when they decide to bomb bridges, and I'll explain why. The invasion itself haven't started yet. And it means that we have a unique opportunity here to try and stop something before it happens and not just to protest about it after it happens. And on the other side, we have the French deal that says several things. One of them, that the Lebanese government will recognize Israel in some sort, or at least enough to work together, that the Lebanese army, with the help of French and other powers, will be the one to disarm Hezbollah. And for the first time, the Lebanese government passed a decision that says that Hezbollah armed forces are illegal. I mean, these all are things that never happened before, and they are happening now, and they don't get the attention that they deserve. And I'm almost suspicious of Netanyahu that the reason that he's bombing bridges, that, by the way, none of the experts in Israel understands the reasoning behind it. I'm starting to think that this is because Netanyahu doesn't want this deal to happen, and he doesn't want something that might work. The importance here is that it's not something between two states. It's not Israel versus Lebanon. This is Israel and a non-state actor that Lebanon itself would like to kind of get rid, at least from the armed forces of Hezbollah. So here we have an opportunity and something to push for. It has been postponed now to April, a big meeting, I think, in France. I just heard that the meeting was postponed to April today, so I don't have the details, but anyone can look at it. And this is something that write to your own foreign ministers, ask them to join. This is something that can help at least to prevent another phase of the war. When it comes to the war on Iran, I think it's quite obvious now, and there's no need to explain much. But the good thing that is, even in the Israeli main media, there's a hint of talks like that. And in the last weekend, even though it was under missiles and in a horrible weather, there were 4 demonstrations at the same time in Israel against the war. And not just that, that already people start to say things that were never said before when it came to Iran. So the understanding that this war is not about the nuclear weapon definitely didn't help with the 440 kilo of highly enriched uranium that Iran just a month ago was willing to dilute and give half of it. And this is a shift in Israel that I hope will help when we will try to make Israel part of the international discourse on the Middle East and on weapons of mass destruction.
Sharon, I want to give you the 2 minutes time.
Thank you. We have the NPT coming up, and in this NPT, all of us that are going to be there, I think have, if we care about the zone, and if we want to see that Netanyahu and Trump's wishes of derail diplomacy, if there's one thing that we need to do, and please contact us if you want to think with us what can be done, is to keep the November conference alive. We don't know now how many of the states in the region are still interested, and we don't know how this war ends. We don't know if it ends before the November conference. I hope yes. But if one thing is for sure is that we cannot allow especially Netanyahu to get what he wants here, which is the end of international discourse over the zone and solutions, the thing he dreads most. And I'll stop here.
Thank you so much. And now we're going to go to the input of Dr. Leonardo Bandarra. Leonardo is also on the board of directors of METO, and he's an expert about the region.
Yes, thank you, Mariana, and thank you everyone for being here and joining our event now. And also from my side, even though it's not the best of times, but still happy Eid and happy Nowruz for those that are celebrating either of them. And yes, so I'm going to make a brief presentation and to be more or less like explanations from what my colleagues already said. So my idea is first to go a bit on what Lina said under the perspective of international law, namely this idea of the stability and of the precedents that this war is bringing. And also going on the ways forward on what Sharon said. So if you didn't know any of the acronyms that she used, I hope that after my presentation you will. Yes. So first about the proliferation risks. So this war is, and I'm taking that this series of attacks and of different conflicts that have been going on for the last few months have brought some kind of dangerous precedents in terms of international law, and especially in terms of keeping the very fragile instability that we see in the region. So negotiations about regional security and safety have already been on for a long time. So since the 70s, in the 90s, we had a round of discussions that were hosted in Madrid, that's called ICRC. And this was when we had some proximity and some ways forward that on how we can achieve a regional solution. And then we moved on in the 2000s with different sorts of negotiation, mostly formal negotiations on how this could be built, especially within the framework of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. That's what NPT means. So it's a treaty from which countries that don't have nuclear weapons forwent nuclear weapons on the promise of nuclear disarmament, so that's important, and on the promise of peaceful access to nuclear technology. And this is also bound within other set of laws, including the humanitarian law, which is a set of rules that we need when war is being going on. So wars are going on under frameworks of laws that aim to reduce the harm and ensure proportionality. And among these laws, we have the Geneva Conventions, and they have two protocols, more protocols, but sure, no, it's important. So the first one is from 1949. And in Article 46 of that, I'm just putting the number so anyone can also see that if they're interested. It's prohibited to attack, or is care, a particular care must be taken for work and installations containing dangerous forces, and then nuclear installations are mentioned there very specifically. So it sounds fragile, but that's the prohibition that we have. It's the most strong rule that we have that also shows something that may sound obvious, but it's not. So if you have a very dangerous material, and if you are working with that and you attack that, it can split to the people around that, and it can cause environmental danger that is irremediable. So this is why this is been forbidden, and it is a soft rule that is being holding for a long time. So we have all the situation in Ukraine, and now we had like these attacks on many Iranian targets, including Natanz lately, and also a counterattack in Israel in the city of Dimona, so in Arad. So the power plant, the research station in where it's known to have nuclear warheads in Israel was not attacked, but it was a sign. And this is one of the last few non-regional soft laws that ensures that this very unstable, that this very fragile stability may be broken, as Lina said in her presentation, and Emad also pointed that out. So these kind of rules and ways of behavior, if they are not attended, then the consequences could be dire. So this is like when we are on a negotiate and attack, which only works until a certain point. So we don't know when we had the end of that. And the end could be the break of this, and the break of this is not only for the region itself, but it could also have global consequences. When you think about non-proliferation, that means countering the spread of nuclear weapons. This is a very fragile balance. And once it is broken in the region, we can expect a domino effect that we don't want to. So as we say in the preface of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, a nuclear war is something that could be avoided, and proliferation would make that war more likely. So then I came to my second point and my last point, so ways forward. And here I highlight, as well as Sharon said, that we have many things that are being overlooked. So one of the things that's been overlooked, as Sharon said, is the domestic the domestic developments within the countries. She said, for example, what's going on in Lebanon. Can also have like the prospects of elections in Israel as well. Also the situation now in Iran with the new supreme leader. But I want to focus on the international level. So in the international level, we had what Sharon said, that is the November conference. So this conference is an acronym for what they call the zone, and I'm almost done, Mariana. And this is the conference on negotiating a zone free upwards of nuclear and other kinds of weapons of mass destruction and the means of delivery. This is a conference that's been going on since 2019. With a mandate open to all countries of the region, namely all the 22 member states of the Arab League, plus Iran and Israel. Under also the inviting are the members of the Security Council and relevant international organizations. So this is one pathway that is open both to get rid of the most dangerous weapons, but also to create a forum where countries from the region can also later on develop ways of ensuring peace and stability through a new security architecture. This is also one of the aims of, I hope that in November, when they meet again, this is going to be already over, but this is also a forum that should be also cherished and also shown that the region itself is a region where we have also many bad news, but it also have solutions. And these solutions that is going on free of weapons of mass destruction is not only for the region, but for the whole world. Yeah. Give you to the Mariana.
Thank you so much. Right on time. So great. So we're gonna open it to Q&A, but before we would like to give the floor to Azhar Mohammed Sulaimana. I think you are among the attendees. I'm gonna add you now. Azhar is director of the partner organization of METO, Salam, and he's in Comoros. and he can give us a perspective from the Indian Ocean. And Azhar, you have a couple of minutes to give us your perspective. Are you there? Not, I wanna tell people to prepare, think your questions. Some of them have already been answered in the Q&A box, but you can also raise your hand. While we wait, Azhar, are you there? While we wait for Azhar, maybe we can. I see Les Levido hand. I'm gonna keep. No, now it's down. Okay, yes, no, it's up. Les, you can make your question.
Hello. Yes, I have followed the Rosa Luxembourg publications and events for many years, so I was expecting some progressive anti-imperialist content, but I don't hear any. Even worse, I heard a proposal that it would be an advance if the Lebanese army could disarm Hezbollah. Well, which side are you on? Hezbollah is the main reason why Israel did not successfully colonize and take over Lebanon in the 1980s. Hezbollah was the only force capable of ejecting it from Lebanon, as well as supporting other anti-imperialist forces, now including the resistance in Palestine. I don't understand why you have such a peaker at this event. Which side are you on? I mean, if Hezbollah were successfully disarmed, then Zionist terror would prevail all the more easily. The Zionist regime could more easily dictate who would be the government of Lebanon, which they're already trying to do. So what kind of game are you playing?
Thank you, Les. This is a webinar to analyze what is going on. This is not the official position of RLS. We are just bringing perspectives from the region, and we appreciate yours. Thank you so much. I see Azhar is on mute. Azhar, you wanna
that quickly though?
Yeah, yes, if you want, Sharon.
Okay. Hezbollah is a non-state actor, and Lebanon has the sovereignty to decide, and an army that's supposed to control the borders of Lebanon. So the idea to disarm Hezbollah did not come from the Zionist regime, or as we would like to call it, Israel. It came from Lebanon. And this is something that Lebanon wished for quite some time. Just to remind you, Lebanese government is headed by a Sunni. Hezbollah is a Shiite organization. Now, I am not saying that all armies should be disarmed, but the non-state actors, especially if the wish of their own country, that they will remain just a political party and not an armed political party, I think we can respect that.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, Azhar. Azhar, are you there? We can continue. Wait, we have Melissa Don Park. Or if you're prepared to talk.
Yes, hello. Thank you, and thank you for holding this important webinar at this point in time. And I'd just like to, acknowledge the horrendous cost to innocent populations in the region. Many civilian deaths, including hundreds of school children, initiated and caused by this war of choice by the United States and Israel. It was good to hear Leonardo talk about the strikes by the US and Israel on the Natanz nuclear facilities, and then the corresponding retaliation by Iran on Arad and Dimona. And the fact that Dimona is a town directly next to the main nuclear weapons site in Israel is extremely concerning and really not getting the media attention that it should, because of course anytime you've got war going on near a nuclear facility is extremely dangerous for the entire region. Emad talked about the need for, when this war is over, for an agreement, a coming together by various states, including the GCC, regional countries, the P5, to have a final deal. Well, that deal must include discussion of Israel's nuclear weapons. The world has been very concentrated on Iran's, whether Iran has or has not had a nuclear weapon or developing one, and the experts have said no, they have not been developing a nuclear weapon. But there's been very little discussion about Israel's nuclear weapons, and it's time for that discussion to take place in the context of this war that's happening now, even in the absence of Israel participating in the November meeting. So, yeah, just wanted to put that in there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Let's try one more time with Azhar. I see he's there.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
We hear you.
Yeah.
Yes. Great.
I had a problem with that. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much for giving me this chance to talk a little bit about impacts on the US-Israel war on Iran for countries like in East Africa and Indian Ocean. This ongoing US-Israel war with Iran in this month is not just a Middle Eastern conflict. It has direct and indirect consequences for East Africa and the wider Indian Ocean region. Due to geography, trade dependency, security challenges, and so on. But I'm just giving 3 minutes. I'm trying to summarize on my analysis on 3 points. The first is economic impacts in the region. The second one, trade and maritime impacts. And the third one, security risk. From the very beginning, the most...
Oh, we lost you again. Azhar, can you hear us? Okay, you're back. You're back.
Okay. Should I start from the beginning?
No, we just missed you for a second there. If you can continue with the first point that you were making.
Okay. The first point, which is economic impacts, which is the most immediate impacts, comes from the disruption in the Strait of Hormuz critical global oil routes. The strait handles a large share of global oil and gas flows, and its disruption has already pushed fuel prices up worldwide. Here in East African countries in the Indian Ocean, for example, Kenya, Tanzania, Comoros, which rely heavily on imported fuel. This leads to higher transport and electricity costs. Inflation across basic goods, pressure on government budgets, and 3 countries I mentioned do have seaport connected to Red Sea. Can just imagine other countries that depend on importation from this country seaport, like Rwanda, Burundi, and some others don't have sea. In brief, the conflict is already contributing the global cost of living crisis, even in distant economies like here in East Africa. For the trade and maritime impact, starting from the trade, East Africa and the Indian Ocean has impacted directly from the first day of the war, because the majority of businessmen, they are doing their trade in the Middle East, especially in Dubai, in the Emirates, and many of them they stuck over there. They spend many days that they couldn't spend time there. And in this important business time, Ramadan month, which is very important in East African Indian Ocean for the Islamic community. So they had a problem of trading, and the economy is down because of this war. The issue of diaspora. A country like Somalia, Ethiopia, Djibouti, Eritrea and Zanzibar in Tanzania, Mombasa, Lamu in Kenya have a very considerable diaspora in the Middle East, like Oman, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait. They have a very big community in this region who work over there. So people here, as you know, the budget of Africa, maybe 20% of the budget depend on diaspora. That is economically very impacted in that issue. For
we will ask you to wrap up soon. Yes.
Okay. For security risk, as you know, East Africa, which is the Horn of Africa, Djibouti, Somalia, Eritrea, host of foreign military bases, and you know what's happened last time in the Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean with the U.S. military base. That's mean we're in a risk because of the Mozambique Channel that many tanks pass by, and these military bases in the region. The region is risky because of this conflict. This is in general the three elements that impacts the war directly in this region: East Africa and Indian Ocean. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Azhar. That was a key input. I see Joseph Gerson hand. Joseph, if you are ready, you can go with your question. There's also questions at the Q&A. You can look at the answers there. Joseph.
Thank you. This may be as much a comment as a question. I apologize for that. But to see this war in its broadest context and the urgency for ending it, but thinking about what comes after, we're in a period, as Gramsci said, of the old world has been dying, the new world struggling to be born, and certainly this war reflects that we're in a time of monsters. And kind of building on what Azad was just saying, the other dimension of the disaster of this war is the lack of fertilizer, especially for the global South, and what that's going to mean in terms of hunger. But I think here in the United States, I think it's increasingly recognized. I mean, Trump has just put himself like an insect in a spider web. The war has failed in its principal aims, which are regime change and to block Iran from becoming a nuclear weapon state. And of course, we fear that the lesson from this war, not only for Iran, but for other countries looking at the North Korean model, will be to get nuclear weapons as quickly as possible. But I want to suggest here, and there's a fine article by Daniel Immerwahr in the current issue of the New Yorker, that what Trump has done has functionally ended the U.S. empire. We see the alienation of allies. And the ability of Iran to endure the horrors of what are being inflicted. Not to say that I like the Iranian government. So it seems to me that we're approaching on the other side of this war, whatever that outcome will be a whole new international landscape, one in which the work of METO will be increasingly important. And be taking place in a context in which we've got to struggle for a common security order instead of what we look to be seeing of a increasingly brutalized great power, medium power, hegemonic powers rule, expansion of power and privilege by sheer brutality. But I want to just encourage us to think about the central importance of what METO has been doing in the context of the post-war period.
Thank you so much, Joseph. And yes, definitely. I think this is a good opportunity. I see one more hand, actually. Patrick Patil. Patrick, you have the floor now.
Hello, yes, thanks for this webinar and thank you for your work. I would like to ask, is it also not a time to question the existence of foreign military bases in the region? It seems like it is clearly making the region much more insecure. And I would, I feel that's should be a part of a collective security. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Yes, I wonder if any of you wanna take onto that question as a trigger. Yeah, Leo, you had your hand up. Yes.
Sharon can go before she was.
Are you
Great.
sure?
Go ahead, Sharon.
Okay. So I want to mainly use what Melissa was asking. She started with the first to look at the people in the Middle East and their suffering, and most of them have no shelters. And yeah, this is something extremely important to remember, the death toll of civilians. And it's also time maybe to dedicate our next webinar on the target choosing that became an AI mission, right, Emad? And it's extremely important. I also want to take what Melissa said about it's time to discuss and to talk about the nuclear weapons in Israel. Now, as somebody that grew up in Arad, one of the cities next to the reactor, I can say that I was shocked the first time I ever set foot at the UN and realized that while we don't discuss it at all because of ambiguity, all the states in the world do discuss Israel nuclear weapon. So the question is not whether they discuss or not discuss, because the 95 extension resolution was about Israel without saying that, right? A state that is not party to the NPT, so it was a resolution that was not being conceived in goodwill, right? Not because I'm protecting Israel now, but you cannot promise something on behalf of a state that is not party. So it's not that there is no discussion on the Israeli nuclear program. There is not a discussion that might help about the Israeli nuclear discussion. And I have to say that this is something in the Middle East Treaty Organization, that's exactly what we changed. From just talking about Israel's nuclear weapon and just calling on Israel to disarm, we actually created a mechanism that might work and then did the advocacy, and with the help of others, and mainly the Egyptians, I have to say, it became the November conference. So it's not enough to talk about something. We really need to remember that we have power as civil society to see what might happen and then change it. Just so you'll understand how much ambiguity affects people, the people in the city of Dimona that got hit instead of the reactor are, as always, as when people live next to such a dangerous facility, are the low layer of society. And if some of them, and there are many stories, it's not easy to find, if they get sick with illnesses that are similar or might be have something to do with radiation, they're not just allowed to go to any doctors. They're only allowed to go to doctors that keep the secret, that work for the Israeli Atomic Agency Commission. That's how ambiguity is endangering not just the security discourse in Israel, but actually all of Israelis, because we're not even allowed to do radiation checks. Only the Atomic Agency can do it. And this is something that we need to break. And this is the work of METO in Israel, to break the ambiguity and to show why the case of why participation in the November conference and in other international discourses are actually better for Israel's security and not hampering Israel's security. And this is something that we need help with.
Yeah. Leo, you wanna continue that?
Yes, so I just want two points because I saw that in the chats. So people were saying that was one from Pia, I think, that why these attacks in close to nuclear power plants or in nuclear research facilities are not so well in the media as Zaporizhzhia, for example. And I think there are some reasons for that. None of them good reason, but this is like a heritage from what I see from other structures that we have. is still like a heritage of colonial structures, for why some wars have more attention than others. So when something happened here, I'm based in Germany now. When something comes closer to here, it has more attention, not only here, but also, for example, in other countries, let's say Latin America. And so, and what happens in other countries does not have that much, especially when a country that most of them here still have them as an ally or a great power, as the United States, is involved in the active part of that. I can also highlight that we have also wars that are also in the region. So we have also the situation in Mauritania, Somalia, also in Yemen. So we have many other conflicts that we have there and are also very dangerous. So the situation from weapons of mass destruction point of view is very dire. And as I said, so attacks on nuclear power plants are under international law not allowed, even though we don't have that, but we still have the consequences that it can have. And the precedents are bad. So we had one, as I said, as a bridge, but we also have now two others. So we have Natanz and also Dimona, and we hope we didn't have to a point when radiation really falls out. But this is one thing that we are getting closer to the red lines. And once this red line are crosses, we have a genie that's out of the bottle that's very hard to get in. So this is also like a situation of this instability that we are facing in right now.
Thank you. I want to invite Lina or Emad to add or to give your final remarks.
I think my colleagues have, just summed it up really good, from the different perspectives. But actually, I was interested to know or to hear from any of the participants the views and the perspectives in the US or in Europe, wherever any of our audience are.
That's an interesting question that we're throwing to the public. Perhaps if Joseph wanna go or any other one. Joseph, I will move you to the panel. Yes, Joseph.
So just to say in response, the war is incredibly unpopular here in the United States. I mean, I'm an old man, and there's never been a time like this when a president launched a war without attempting to build a base. And interestingly, too, Trump's base, which was based on America First and his promises of peace, there's now a split within his base. Polls indicate that the war is supported by not much more than 30%, and it's sort of undeniable. And I think it's widely recognized that Trump has failed to. On the one hand, he failed to articulate any serious reasons for launching the war. The failure with the Iranian government surviving and remaining in place. I was in one track 2 session where a former U.S. arms control negotiator, a senior U.S. figure, said, "Look, the goal was at least to fracture the Iranian government, and it seems that the American government is going to be fractured first." The war aims either the overthrow of the government or somehow denuclearizing Iran are an obvious failure. And I think what we see with Trump's latest lies about negotiations with Iran are part of his desperate effort to buy time and to build support. As I said before, Trump's fear now, his biggest fear, I think, is losing control of Congress in the midterm elections, which come up in November. We now have, not only here in the United States but worldwide, massive increases in the price of oil, gasoline at the gas station. And this leads to alienation beyond those who are necessarily peace-oriented. So Trump has got himself in a very bad position. And I think the biggest fear that some of us have is as Trump goes down, which won't happen instantly, but as Trump goes down, how much of the rest of the world he's going to take with him. So this is the biggest fear. The guy is mentally unbalanced, and that adds one other serious dimension of concern. And I just also to say economically, I mean, look what's happening in the state at the stock market, and Krugman, who's Nobel economist, is not only talking about the failure of this war, but he came up with one possible rationale for Trump's most recent lie, which was even more cynical than I could come up with, which was it has provided a way for him and others to make more money. He doesn't say that happened, but it may be a possibility.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you so much. Yes, Emad.
Well, thank you everybody for your comments and questions. I'm going to give myself a minute and before we end off by saying that the restructuring of the Middle East and beyond in the world is happening right now. The fact is that there is a need for a new global governance structure, one that is, as Trump and Netanyahu are desperately trying to keep hold of, it is the desperate notion that they can stop the movement of time and change, and it's too late. The world has changed, and this war is going to accelerate the need for a new dawn, a new structure. And the UN, after the Second World War, is no longer built for purpose in 2026, and it requires change. And this war, mind you, not only will show that might is not right, that aggression will not serve your interest, it will also bring to the attention of the GCC, Arab countries, Israel, Iran, and the rest of the region to realize that they have to take the reign of their own security into their own hands, just like the Europeans ultimately decided after the Second World War, after killing each other twice in 2 world wars of 80 million people, that they need to figure out their own security, their own integration, their own commitment to working together. And this, you may not see it now, but I tell you, it is the buds of the flower that will bloom in the region is happening at the cost of the ashes and the blood that has been spilled in the region, and is an end, the beginning of the end of the hegemonic powers who believe that they can do what they want in this world without a reaction and an answer. And it is to tell the bullies of the world that you cannot continue your aggression and remain safe wherever you are. And I will end by saying this, that at METO, look around who these directors are. You haven't seen our whole team. We are a microcosm of a future that we believe in, a vision that we believe in, that we believe that the Middle East can be a prosperous, peaceful, secure world. When the Middle East shines, the rest of the world shines. When the Middle East is in darkness, the rest of the world is in darkness. And I say this with the belief that there is an alternative ways out there. There are solutions on the ground, and our people in the region, may that be in NGOs, civil society, the mothers, the fathers, the children, they know that there's a better way forward. And we have the means, we have the manpower, the woman power, we've got the technologies, we've got the means, we've got the history, we've got the ground that can allow us to nourish this new vision for the future. And I beg you and I ask you to join us on this mission, to join us on this noble mission, and do your part, because as you have heard, it is not just the Middle East that is bleeding. From food insecurity to proliferation risks that are going to spread across the world, to what's happening to the stock markets, to the oil prices, on the humanitarian concept. And just let me finish this. We haven't touched on it, but you know, in the first 14 days, the US and Israel burned 5 million carbon dioxide emissions. That is equivalent to more than 86 countries that burned in the same time. The environment is also getting hurt. And at a time when climate change is desperately coming at fast pace, and the one region that is at the front end of what is going to happen with water insecurity, with desertification, with food insecurity, is the Middle East. So I ask you, from behalf of our team here, that please join us. Either give us money, a cup of coffee, doesn't matter. Put a little bit of money in. Every cent goes into our programs and activities, and you will see what we're doing when you go to our website. And we're doing so much more that is not on the website because we don't have the money to revamp the website. But when we do, you will see that every measure we take, every act we take, from Sharon, Lina, Leo, everybody else, has committed so much of their time, sacrificed so much. I can't go to Iran because I work with my beloved Sharoni. And Sharoni is under so much pressure in Israel because she works with the kinds like me. We put everything in the line because we believe that this can change. So please support us, join us, partner with us, put us in front of more eyeballs, and give us some money because we need it. Because we're going against trillions of dollars of the military industrial complex. You know it. But with a little bit of help, we can go so far. We can go so far. We've gone already so far with so little. I thank you for your time. I thank you in your belief. And I thank you with your trust in what we can do. The Middle East is not going to be the same when we are done with it. Inshallah. Thank you.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Emad, for the powerful ending. I want to just point people to the chat. The link to donate is right there. Please support METO, support this team. They're doing a fantastic work, and for sure we will see each other again as this terrible war continues and expands. So stay tuned. We will continue these conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary.